My son's voice crackled through the speakerphone he forgot to disconnect.
My wife
Mom
shut
finally
her up.
learned to keep her mouth shut. Jessica put her in her place. Then his wife's voice cut through like a razor. Honestly, Daniel, the best birthday gift you could give me is if that old hag just dropped dead already. Save us years of waiting. My son laughed. He actually laughed at the idea of me dying. I stood frozen in my kitchen phone pressed to my ear, listening to my own child celebrate the thought of my death. What my son didn't know was that his Uncle Thomas had just landed his private jet 15 minutes away. What Jessica didn't know was that the $55 million empire she was trying to steal was mine. I set down the phone and smiled. Time to show these snakes who they were really dealing with. My name is Margaret Ellen Richardson, 67 years old, and I just heard my son wish me dead. Let me tell you how I got here. Daniel was born on a rainy Tuesday in March. 18 hours of labor, my husband Robert squeezing my hand through every scream. When Daniel finally arrived, red-faced and wailing, I made a silent promise. I would give this child everything. I would sacrifice anything to make him happy. I kept that promise for 43 years, and this is how he repaid me. Robert worked as an accountant. Good man, steady paycheck. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. Normal life, normal family, at least that's what everyone thought. What nobody knew, not even Robert, was that I had been quietly building an empire. Before Daniel was born, my brother Thomas and I inherited $50,000 from our grandparents. Thomas took his share and built Richardson Aviation, now worth over $2 billion. I took my share and bought land. Worthless patches of dirt on the outskirts of the city that nobody wanted. I paid pennies per acre, and I held on for decades. Those properties are now worth $55 million. Shopping centers, office buildings, apartment complexes, all mine, all hidden behind trusts and shell companies that only Thomas and my lawyers knew about. Why hide it? Because I wanted Daniel to learn the value of hard work. I didn't want him growing up as a spoiled rich kid expecting handouts. So I kept my empire secret and lived like a middle-class housewife. Biggest mistake of my life. Robert died 8 years ago. Heart attack. No warning. One morning we were drinking coffee and planning our anniversary trip. That afternoon I was identifying his body at the hospital. The grief nearly killed me. But I had Daniel, my son, my reason for living. Daniel had already graduated law school by then, working at a prestigious firm downtown. I was so proud. When he called to tell me he'd met someone special, I cried happy tears. Her name was Jessica Thornton. The first time I met her, she walked into Daniel's apartment wearing a dress that cost more than my car, diamond earrings, designer heels, perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect smile that never reached her eyes. She looked me up and down like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "So, you're Daniel's mother." She didn't offer her hand. "He said you were simple. I didn't realize he meant it literally." I felt my face flush. "It's lovely to meet you, Jessica." She turned away. "Daniel, your mother can help the caterers in the kitchen. We have actual guests to greet." I should have slapped her right then. I should have grabbed my son and demanded to know why he was dating someone so cruel. Instead, I smiled and walked to the kitchen like a trained dog. That was my first mistake. It wouldn't be my last. The wedding was obscene. 400 guests, ice sculptures, a designer gown that cost $80,000. Jessica's parents insisted on paying for everything. I later learned they put it all on credit cards they never intended to pay. I offered to contribute to the wedding. Jessica laughed in my face. "That's adorable, Margaret. What would you contribute? A casserole?" At the reception, I was seated at a table near the bathrooms, the reject table. I watched strangers dance with my son while I sat alone picking at cold chicken. When they announced the mother-son dance, I stood up and smoothed my dress. Finally. My moment with my boy. Jessica grabbed the microphone. "Change of plans, everyone. Daniel is going to dance with my mother instead. She's been such an important part of making him the man he is today." I stood there with my arms at my sides, watching another woman dance with my son at his wedding. Nobody even looked at me. I cried the entire drive home. 3 months later, Daniel showed up at my door. "Mom, I need money. Jessica found our dream house, but we're short on the down payment. You still have Dad's life insurance, right? I need $200,000. $200,000. Everything Robert left me, my only security. I looked at Daniel's face. The same face I'd kissed goodnight for 18 years. The same eyes that used to look at me with pure love. Of course, sweetheart. Family helps family. I transferred the money the next morning. At their housewarming party, Jessica gave a speech. Daniel and I worked so hard for this house. We saved every penny. Nobody handed us anything. This is what ambition looks like. She stared directly at me when she said it, smirking. I said nothing. Over the next 5 years, I became the family servant. Free babysitter, free housekeeper, free cook. Whenever their nanny quit because Jessica was impossible to work for, I filled in. Whenever they wanted a vacation, I watched the kids. Whenever they hosted a dinner party, I prepared the food that Jessica took credit for making. Margaret helped a little, she'd tell guests. But it's really my grandmother's recipe. I did it all because of Emma and Lucas, my grandchildren, the only light in my life. Emma was 7, dark hair like her mother, but kind eyes like Daniel used to have. Lucas was 5, boundless energy, infectious laugh. They loved their grandmother with the pure, unconditional love that only children can give. One afternoon while baking cookies, Emma tugged my sleeve. "Grandma, why does Mommy say mean things about you?" My hands froze over the mixing bowl. "What things, sweetheart?" "She calls you the old leech. She says you suck money from everyone. Lucas heard her say she wishes you would just die already, so Daddy could have your money." 5 years old. Lucas was 5 years old when he heard his mother wish his grandmother dead. I hugged Emma tight so she wouldn't see my tears. "It's just grown-up talk, baby. Don't worry about it." But I never forgot. The isolation started slowly. Jessica began making excuses for why I couldn't see the children. "The kids have activities. We're busy this weekend." Emma has play dates with children from more appropriate families. More appropriate families. As if I was a disease that might infect her precious children. I tried talking to Daniel. "Mom, Jessica knows what's best for the kids. Maybe if you dressed better, bought some nicer clothes, you kind of embarrass her in front of her friends." My own son. Telling me I wasn't good enough to be seen with his family. I went home and cried until I couldn't breathe, but I still didn't fight back. I still believed love would win, that Daniel would remember who raised him, that Jessica would eventually show some humanity. I was a fool. The breaking point came at Emma's 8th birthday party. Jessica had rented out an entire country club, professional entertainers, gourmet catering, decorations that cost more than some people's rent. I was invited only because Daniel insisted. I spent weeks finding the perfect gift. A handmade dollhouse modeled after my childhood home where Daniel had spent summers with his grandmother. Every tiny detail crafted with love. A piece of family history. Jessica met me at the door. "What the hell is that?" "Emma's present. A dollhouse I had specially made." "Absolutely not." Jessica's face twisted with disgust. "We have a theme for this party and that piece of junk doesn't fit. Put it back in your car." "But I made it for Emma. It's a family heirloom." Jessica stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "Listen carefully, Margaret. Nobody wants your pathetic homemade garbage. The other mothers here spend thousands on real gifts. You show up with something that looks like it came from a dumpster. It's humiliating. You're humiliating. Put it in your car or get off my property." "I'll just give it to Emma quietly. She'd love it." Jessica's hand shot out and shoved my chest. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the dollhouse. "Put it back. Now. Or I call security and have you dragged out in front of everyone." I walked to my car in a daze. I placed the dollhouse in the trunk. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I walked back to the party with nothing but a card containing $50. "Better," Jessica smiled sweetly. "See, even old dogs can learn new tricks." The party was torture. I was seated at a table in the corner with elderly relatives nobody cared about. Other guests whispered and pointed. Some laughed openly. When Emma opened presents, my card was tossed aside, unopened. We'll deal with the cards later, Jessica announced. Let's see the real presents. Real presents. As if my love was worthless. After the gifts, I found Emma and Lucas in a side room. Grandma. They both ran to me. I knelt down and held them tight. Did you bring me a present? Emma asked. I did, sweetheart. A special dollhouse. It's in my car. I'll show you later. I love dollhouses, Lucas said. Can I play with it too? Of course, baby. You can both. What the hell is going on here? Jessica stood in the doorway, face red with rage. Get away from my children, now! I was just saying hello. They're my grandchildren. They are my children. Daniel, get in here. My son appeared moments later. What's wrong? Your mother was alone with the kids again. I told her not to do that. She doesn't listen. She never listens. Mom, we've talked about this. You need to respect Jessica's rules. Daniel, I was giving my grandchildren a hug on Emma's birthday. That's not the point. Jessica's voice rose so everyone in the hallway could hear. The point is, she doesn't know her place. She shows up uninvited. She forces herself into our lives. She makes everyone uncomfortable with her desperate neediness. Guests gathered, watching, whispering, some of them smiling. I was invited, I said quietly. Daniel invited me. Daniel was being polite. We both know nobody actually wants you here. Normal people can take a hint, Margaret. I looked at my son, begging him with my eyes to defend me. He put his arm around Jessica. Mom, just go. We'll talk later. I walked out with whatever dignity I had left. I sat in my car and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Then I heard voices through the window. Jessica and her friends in a room nearby. Can you believe she actually showed up? Daniel's mother is the worst. Poor, clingy zero class. I don't know why he even claims her. Why keep her around? Jessica laughed. Because she's useful, free babysitter, free maid. Plus, Daniel says she has life insurance money from his dead husband. Once we get control of that, we cut her off permanently. How do you get control of someone else's money? We have her declared mentally incompetent. Daniel already talked to lawyers. She's old, emotional, makes scenes at parties. Easy to convince a judge she can't manage her own affairs. Then we take over her finances and stick her in a nursing home. Problem solved. What if she fights back? With what? She has no money for lawyers. No family except Daniel. No friends. I spent years isolating her, cutting her off from everyone, making her look crazy. Now we swoop in and take everything. Jessica paused. Want to know the best part? She has no idea. She still thinks Daniel's going to come around, still thinks we'll be one big happy family. It's actually pathetic how desperate she is for love. I sat in my car, unable to move. My son was planning to have me declared incompetent, to steal my money, to throw me away like garbage. But Jessica had made one fatal mistake. She thought I was a helpless old woman with nothing but a dead man's insurance policy. She had no idea she was trying to rob a millionaire. I drove home and called my brother. Thomas, I need your help. I've been waiting 5 years for this call. Tell me everything. I told him. Every cruel word, every humiliation, every detail of the plan I'd overheard. That woman is a predator, Thomas said. We need to find out who she really is. How? I'll send you Rachel Park, former FBI, best investigator money can buy. She'll dig up everything. 3 weeks later, Rachel handed me a folder that changed everything. Jessica Marie Thornton was born Jessica Marie Kowalski in Detroit. Father did 2 years for check fraud. Mother was a drug addict who lost custody when Jessica was 12. Her family, the old money, the social connections. All fake. She changed her name at 22, created a completely fabricated history, the parents at the wedding actors she hired. My head spun. Actors paid $5,000 each to play wealthy parents for a weekend. Her real parents, if they're still alive, haven't seen her in 15 years. Oh my God. It gets worse. Rachel flipped pages. She was married before, right out of college, to Harold Webster, wealthy businessman, 40 years older. What happened to him? Died 18 months after the wedding. Heart failure. Jessica inherited $2 million. Heart failure. That's what the death certificate says. But Harold's children hired investigators. There were questions about his medication being tampered with, drugs that could induce cardiac arrest. The case was never proven, but it was never closed either. I felt sick. She might have murdered her first husband. And now she's married to your son, who happens to be the only heir to a fortune she doesn't know exists. There's more, Rachel continued. She's having an affair, 2 years now. Personal trainer named Marcus Webb. She's funneled over $300,000 stolen dollars to him through shell companies. $300,000 from where? From Daniel. From household accounts. She's been skimming for years. Building an escape fund. Escape. She has an exit strategy. New identities for her and Marcus. Plane tickets to a country with no extradition. She plans to drain Daniel dry and disappear within 6 months. But first, she wants to get your money too. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. She thinks she's the predator. She has absolutely no idea. 2 days before confronting Jessica, I went to Daniel's house unannounced. The housekeeper let me in. Jessica was out. Daniel was at work. I found Emma and Lucas in the playroom. Grandma. They tackled me with hugs. Grandma, I have to tell you a secret. Emma pulled me close. Mommy has a hidden room. A hidden room. In the basement. Behind the Christmas decorations. She goes there when she thinks nobody's watching. She has papers and a box with money and pictures of a man who isn't Daddy. She kisses the pictures, Lucas added. I saw her do it. My heart pounded. Can you show me where? Emma led me to the basement. Behind a shelf of dusty decorations was a door I'd never noticed. The lock was cheap. A credit card popped it open in seconds. Inside was a small room, filing cabinets, a safe, and on the desk a framed photograph of a handsome, dark-haired man. The back read, Marcus, my real future, soon. I photographed everything with my phone. The room, the cabinets, the photograph, the stacks of cash hidden in a drawer. Emma Lucas, you did something very brave showing me this, but it has to stay our secret, okay? Very important. Okay, Grandma. I kissed them goodbye and slipped out before the housekeeper noticed. That night I called Thomas. She has a secret room, evidence of everything, affair, stolen money, escape plan. Then we strike now. Family dinner at their house this Saturday. You're going to accept the invitation. She's planning to humiliate me, create more evidence that I'm unstable. Perfect. Let her make her move. Then we destroy her. Saturday arrived. I dressed simply. Cheap navy dress, no jewelry, no makeup. I wanted to look exactly like what Jessica expected. A broken old woman with nothing left. Thomas gave me a small audio transmitter. I'll be listening to everything. When you're ready for us to move in, say the phrase. What phrase? You'll know. I walked to Daniel's house alone. Jessica opened the door with a smile that could freeze blood. Margaret, how wonderful you could make it. The house was packed. Jessica's fake friends, Daniel's colleagues, witnesses she'd assembled for my public humiliation. Daniel stood by the fireplace. When he saw me, something flickered in his eyes. Mom, you came. Of course. Look, tonight might be uncomfortable. Jessica wants to discuss some things. Just stay calm. Whatever you think is best, sweetheart. Dinner was tense. Jessica seated me at the far end of the table. She made pointed comments throughout the meal about elderly relatives who burden their families, about knowing when to step aside gracefully, about the importance of letting go. Everyone knew what she was implying. After dinner, Jessica stood and clinked her glass. Thank you all for being here. As many of you know, our family has been facing challenges lately, specifically regarding Daniel's mother. All eyes turned to me. Margaret is getting older. We've noticed concerning behaviors. Confusion, emotional outbursts, difficulty with basic tasks. Daniel and I have consulted medical professionals. We believe it's time to have Margaret formally evaluated for cognitive decline. Murmurs around the table. Pitying looks, smug smiles. We've prepared documentation, statements from family members, observations from various incidents. For Margaret's own safety, we need to move forward with a formal evaluation." She turned to me with mock concern. "Margaret, is there anything you'd like to say?" I stood slowly. "Actually, Jessica, there is. But first, I'd like to introduce someone." The doorbell rang. "Who could that be?" Jessica frowned. The front door opened. Thomas walked in. Behind him came Rachel Park, 4 lawyers, and 2 security guards. "Everyone, this is my brother Thomas Richardson. You may recognize the name. He owns Richardson Aviation, net worth $2.3 billion. Dead silence. "And I'm Margaret Richardson, Thomas's sister, co-owner of Richardson Holdings. Those commercial buildings downtown, the shopping center, on 5th, the apartment complex that sold for $30 million last month, all mine. My net worth is $55 million. Jessica's face went white as paper. "Thomas, would you like to explain why you're here?" My brother stepped forward, filling the room with his presence. "I'm here because my sister has been systematically abused, isolated, and targeted by a con artist operating under a stolen identity. And tonight that ends." He turned to Jessica. "Jessica Marie Kowalski, born in Detroit. Father convicted of fraud, mother a drug addict, first husband Harold Webster died under suspicious circumstances 18 months after your wedding. You inherited $2 million, current affair with Marcus Webb, your personal trainer. $300,000 stolen from my nephew and funneled to your lover through shell companies. Escape plan involving fake identities and a non-extradition country. Want me to continue?" Jessica's mouth opened, but nothing came out. "I have copies of everything. Your secret room in the basement, the forged documents, the cash stash, the love notes to Marcus. Your own children showed us." "You're lying," Jessica's voice cracked. "Am I?" Thomas held up photographs. "This is your secret room. This is the money. This is the picture of Marcus with my real future written on the back. This is your escape plan dated for 6 months from now." Daniel stood up, face twisted with confusion. "What is this, Mom? What's happening?" I looked at my son with grief that went bone deep. "I know everything, Daniel. I heard you on the phone with Jessica, laughing about how you hoped I'd die soon, planning to have me declared incompetent, scheming to steal money you didn't even know I had. Mom, I didn't mean. You didn't know I was rich. But you were still willing to steal from your own mother. You were still willing to throw me in a nursing home so your wife could take control of my assets. Does it matter whether you were stealing thousands or millions? You betrayed me either way." The room was frozen, every guest watching a family implode. "Here's what happens now." Thomas stepped forward. "Jessica, you will sign divorce papers already prepared. You will return every dollar stolen from my nephew. You will surrender all claims to property, custody, and assets. In exchange, we don't pursue criminal charges for fraud, theft, and potentially accessory to murder in the death of Harold Webster." "You can't prove any of that." "Maybe not in court, but I can make sure every news outlet, every social media platform, every person in this city knows exactly who you are and what you've done. Your fake life ends tonight. The only question is whether you walk away quietly or spend the next decade fighting battles you can't win." Jessica looked around desperately. No allies. Even Daniel was staring at her like she was a stranger. "Daniel, baby, this is all lies. They're trying to destroy us." "The affair." Daniel's voice was hollow. "Marcus, is it true?" Jessica hesitated. 1 second too long. "Oh my God!" Daniel collapsed into a chair. "It's all true." I looked at my broken son and felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. "You have a choice, Daniel. Stand with her and lose everything. Your career, your children, your future. Or cooperate with us. Help protect Emma and Lucas. Maybe we find a way forward. But you need to decide now." The room held its breath. Daniel looked at Jessica, at me, at the lawyers with documents ready. He buried his face in his hands and sobbed. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what she was. I didn't know what I'd become. Please help me." Jessica's face contorted with rage. "You pathetic, spineless worm. After everything I did for you, after all the years I wasted building this life, you're throwing it away because Mommy showed up with money." She lunged at me, hands like claws. Thomas caught her mid-leap. Security pinned her arms. "Get her out of here. Police are on their way." As they dragged her toward the door, Jessica screamed over her shoulder, "This isn't over, Margaret. I'll destroy you. I'll take everything. You'll regret this." One of the guests, an older woman with pearls, stood up calmly. "Actually, dear, I don't think she will. I'm Judge Patricia Wellborn. I just witnessed you assault an elderly woman and threaten her life. I'll be happy to testify when your case goes to trial." Jessica's screams faded as they pulled her outside to the waiting police cars. The room erupted in whispers, guests pulling out phones, some rushing to leave before they could be questioned, others staring at me with newfound respect. I ignored all of them. I walked to my son. He was still crying, broken beyond recognition. I put my hand on his shoulder. "We have a long road ahead, Daniel. You have a lot to answer for, but you're still my son." He looked up at me with devastated eyes. "How can you still love me after everything I did? Because that's what mothers do. We love our children even when they don't deserve it, even when they break our hearts, even when they wish us dead." I pulled him into a hug, the first real embrace we'd shared in years. Thomas appeared beside us. "Margaret, the police need statements, and Child Protective Services will want to discuss custody arrangements for Emma and Lucas." I nodded. "The children stay with me tonight. Daniel too, if he wants. We'll sort out the rest tomorrow." "What about Jessica?" I looked toward the door where they'd taken her. She wanted my money so badly. Now she'll have plenty of time to think about what she's lost. Prison gives you lots of time to think. Thomas smiled grimly. "That's my sister." I walked upstairs to find my grandchildren. They were in Emma's room, huddled together, scared by all the commotion. "Grandma." They ran to me. I knelt down and held them close. "It's okay, babies. Everything's going to be okay now. Grandma's here, and I'm never going away again." Emma looked up at me with serious eyes. "Is Mommy in trouble?" "Yes, sweetheart. Mommy made some very bad choices. She's going to have to answer for them." "Are you going to take care of us now?" I kissed her forehead. "For as long as you need me." "I promise." Lucas tugged my sleeve. "Grandma, I'm glad I told you about the secret room. Did I do good?" I hugged him so tight I thought my heart would burst. "You did so good, baby. You helped Grandma more than you'll ever know." Later that night, after the police left, after the guests scattered, after the lawyers finished their preliminary work, I stood alone in Daniel's living room. My son was upstairs sleeping sedated by the family doctor. My grandchildren were in the guest room, finally peaceful. Thomas had gone back to his hotel to prepare for the legal battles ahead. I looked around at the expensive furniture, the designer art, the luxury that Jessica had built on lies and stolen money. None of it mattered. What mattered was that my family was safe, that the predator had been exposed, that justice finally had been served. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. For years I had been the victim, the doormat, the inconvenient mother everyone wished would disappear. Not anymore. I was Margaret Ellen Richardson, 67 years old, $55 million, survivor, and absolutely nobody's fool. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, custody battles, criminal trials, rebuilding trust with a son who had betrayed me, raising grandchildren whose mother would spend years in prison. But tonight, I had won. Jessica wanted to destroy me. Instead, I destroyed her. And this was only the beginning. The next morning came too fast. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Jessica screaming that she would destroy me. I heard my son laughing about my death. I heard Emma asking if Mommy was in trouble. At 6:30, my phone rang. "Thomas, we have a problem." I sat up in bed. "What kind of problem?" "Jessica made bail. Her lawyer showed up at midnight with $50,000 cash. She's out." My blood went cold. How is that possible? She was arrested for assault. Assault on a family member is a misdemeanor in this state. Bail was set low. Someone posted it anonymously. "Marcus?" "That's my guess. Rachel is tracking him down now. But Margaret, you need to be careful. Jessica is desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things." I got out of bed and checked on the children, still sleeping, still peaceful. They had no idea their mother was free and probably plotting revenge at this very moment. Daniel was awake. I found him in the kitchen staring at a cup of coffee that had gone cold. "She's out," I said. He looked up with hollow eyes. "I heard you on the phone. What do we do?" "We protect the children. That's the only thing that matters now." "Mom, I need to tell you something." Daniel's voice cracked. "About Jessica. About what I knew." I sat down across from him. "Tell me." "I didn't know about Harold. I swear to God I didn't know about her first husband or any of that. But the other stuff..." He couldn't meet my eyes. "The plan to take your money, the incompetency thing, that was all her idea, but I went along with it. I told myself it was for the kids' future, for our family. But really, I was just weak. I let her convince me you were the problem, that you were holding us back, that you were this burden we had to manage." "Did you ever actually want me dead?" The question hung in the air like poison. "No." Tears streamed down his face. "I never wanted that. When Jessica said it, I laughed because that's what she expected. I've been performing for her for so long I forgot what was real and what was fake. But I never actually wanted you to die, Mom. You have to believe me." I wanted to believe him. God help me, I wanted to believe my son wasn't a complete monster. "The affair," I said. "Did you know about Marcus?" Daniel shook his head. "I suspected something was wrong. She was always on her phone, always had excuses for where she'd been. But I didn't want to know. I was afraid of what I'd find, so I ignored it, pretended everything was fine." "You ignored a lot of things, Daniel." "I know. I ignored how she treated you. I ignored the things she said about you when you weren't there. I ignored the way the kids started parroting her insults. I was a coward. I chose the path of least resistance, and that path led straight to hell." I reached across the table and took my son's hand. "We can't change what happened. We can only decide what happens next. Are you with me or are you with her? I'm with you, Mom. Whatever it takes. I'm done being her puppet." "Then prove it. Help me protect those children." At 8 o'clock, Thomas arrived with his legal team. They spread documents across the dining room table while Emma and Lucas ate cereal in the kitchen, supervised by one of Thomas's security people. "First priority is emergency custody," Thomas's lead attorney explained. "Her name was Victoria Chen, and she looked like she could prosecute Satan himself and win. Given Jessica's arrest and the evidence of her planning to flee the country, we have strong grounds for an emergency order placing the children with Margaret." "What about Daniel?" I asked. "Daniel's situation is complicated. He was involved in the conspiracy to have you declared incompetent. That's not a crime per se, but it could impact his parental rights if Jessica's lawyers try to use it." Daniel went pale. "I could lose my kids." "You could lose a lot of things if we don't handle this correctly. My recommendation is that you cooperate fully with your mother's legal team. Distance yourself completely from Jessica. Provide testimony about her behavior, her lies, everything you know." "I'll do it. Whatever you need." Victoria nodded. "Good. Now let's talk about the criminal case. Jessica was arrested for assault, but the DA is considering additional charges based on the evidence we provided: fraud, theft, possibly conspiracy to commit theft against Margaret." "What about Harold Webster?" I asked, "her first husband." "That's trickier. The case was never officially closed, but there's no new evidence. Without proof that she actually harmed him, we can't reopen the investigation. So she might get away with murder. She might get away with a lot of things if we're not careful, which is why we need to focus on what we can prove: the fraud, the theft, the affair, the fake identity. There's enough there to bury her without touching the Webster case." Thomas's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his face darkened. "Rachel found Marcus. He's at a hotel downtown, checked in last night under a fake name. Can we talk to him?" "We can try, but here's the interesting part. He's not alone. Jessica is with him." My stomach dropped. She went straight to her lover after making bail. Apparently domestic bliss wasn't her first priority. I stood up. "I want to see them." "Margaret, that's not a good idea." I don't care if it's a good idea. That woman threatened my family. She stole from my son. She was planning to destroy my life. I want to look her in the eye and let her know exactly who she's dealing with. Thomas and I arrived at the hotel an hour later. Rachel met us in the lobby. Room 714, they ordered room service 20 minutes ago. Neither of them has left. Are there security cameras? Everywhere. Whatever happens in that hallway will be recorded. Good. I want witnesses. We took the elevator to the 7th floor. Thomas tried one more time to talk me out of it. Margaret confronting her accomplishes nothing. Let the lawyers handle it. The lawyers can handle the legal case. This is personal. I knocked on the door of room 714. For a moment, nothing. Then footsteps. The door swung open, and there he was. Marcus Webb. Tall, dark hair, handsome in that generic personal trainer way. He was wearing a hotel bathrobe and a confused expression. Who are you? I'm Margaret Richardson, Jessica's mother-in-law, or should I say, former mother-in-law. His face went through about 6 different emotions in 2 seconds. Fear won. Jessica, he called over his shoulder. We have a problem. Jessica appeared behind him, wrapped in a silk robe. When she saw me, her eyes went wide. What the hell are you doing here? I came to deliver a message. I have nothing to say to you. Get out before I call security. Go ahead, call them. I'm sure they'd love to hear about how you posted bail with stolen money to meet up with your boyfriend while your children sleep at their grandmother's house. Jessica's face twisted with rage. Those are my children. You have no right to them. I have every right. Emergency custody hearing is tomorrow morning. Given your arrest, your affair, your fake identity, and your plan to flee the country, I'd say my chances are pretty good. You can't do this. Daniel won't let you take his kids. Daniel is the one who asked me to take them. He's done with you, Jessica. Or should I call you by your real name, Jessica Kowalski from Detroit, daughter of a con man and a drug addict, widow of Harold Webster, who died so conveniently after you married him. The color drained from Jessica's face. I see the investigators told you everything. How nice. But you can't prove any of it. Maybe not, but I don't need to prove it in court to destroy your reputation. One press conference, one interview. That's all it would take to make sure everyone in this city knows exactly who you are. Every fake friend, every social connection, every door you've tried to open will slam shut in your face. Marcus stepped forward. Lady, I think you need to leave. Stay out of this, Marcus. This doesn't concern you. Actually, it does. Jessica and I have plans. Plans that don't include you or her pathetic ex-husband or anyone else from her old life. Plans that involve $300,000 she stole from my son. That money belongs to Daniel, which means it belongs to his children. Which means you're sitting on stolen property, Marcus. That makes you an accessory after the fact. Marcus looked at Jessica. You told me that money was yours. It is mine. I earned every penny of it. By stealing from your husband while you were sleeping with another man. By putting up with that weak, spineless mama's boy for 8 years, I deserved compensation. You deserved nothing. I stepped closer. You walked into my son's life with a fake name, a fake background, and a plan to take everything he had. You isolated him from his family. You turned him against his own mother. You were going to have me declared incompetent and steal my money while plotting to run away with your lover. You don't deserve compensation. You deserve prison. Jessica's composure cracked. You think you're so superior. You spent 40 years pretending to be poor while sitting on millions. You lied to everyone, your husband, your son. Your whole life is a lie. The difference between us, Jessica, is that I lied to protect my family. You lied to destroy them. I turned to Marcus. Here's some free advice. Run. Get as far away from this woman as you can, because everyone who gets close to her ends up losing everything. Harold Webster lost his life. My son lost his dignity. You're about to lose your freedom. The police already know about the shell companies, the money transfers, your involvement in her scheme. It's only a matter of time before they come for you, too. Marcus looked at Jessica with new eyes. Is that true? Could I go to prison? He's bluffing. They can't prove anything. I'm not bluffing. I pulled out my phone and showed him the documents Rachel had compiled. Bank records, transfer histories, his name on accounts that shouldn't exist. This is what the DA received yesterday. They're building a case, Marcus, and you're in the middle of it. Jessica, what the hell did you get me into? Calm down. We just need to stick to the plan. Get to the airport, leave the country, start over somewhere they can't find us. Leave the country? You said we were going on vacation. It is a vacation, a permanent one. I have passports for both of us, new names, everything we need. You want me to run away with you? Become a fugitive? I didn't sign up for this. You signed up when you took my money. Your money that you apparently stole. I watched them turn on each other and felt a grim satisfaction. This was what happened when relationships were built on lies. Eventually, the lies collapsed and took everything else with them. Here's another option, Marcus. I spoke calmly. Cooperate with us. Tell the DA everything you know about Jessica's plans, her finances, her activities. In exchange, we recommend leniency. You might avoid prison entirely. Don't listen to her. Jessica grabbed Marcus's arm. She's trying to manipulate you. I'm offering him a way out, something you never gave anyone. Harold Webster didn't get a way out. My son didn't get a way out, but I'm giving Marcus a choice because unlike you, I'm not a monster. Marcus pulled his arm free from Jessica's grip. I need to think about this. There's nothing to think about. We leave tonight. No. Marcus stepped back. I'm not going anywhere with you. Not until I understand exactly how much trouble I'm in. You coward, after everything I gave you. You gave me stolen money and a one-way ticket to prison. That's not a gift, Jessica. That's a trap. Jessica lunged at him, fingernails aimed at his face. Thomas's security guy caught her before she could make contact. Get off me, I'll kill him. I'll kill all of you. That's the second death threat you've made in 12 hours. I kept my voice ice cold. Keep talking. Every word you say is being recorded. I'm sure the judge will find it very interesting at your hearing. Jessica screamed. Pure rage. Pure hatred. This was the real woman behind the polished facade. This was the monster my son had married. You think you've won. You haven't won anything. I'll destroy you, Margaret. I'll tell everyone your secrets. Everyone will know you're not the poor little victim you pretend to be. Go ahead. Tell them I'm a millionaire who lived simply. Tell them I built a real estate empire while pretending to be a housewife. Tell them I gave my son $200,000 without asking for anything in return. I'm happy to have that story out there. Are you happy to have yours? That shut her up. We left her screaming in the hotel room, Marcus already on the phone with a lawyer, their fairy tale escape crumbling around them. In the elevator, Thomas put his hand on my shoulder. That was risky. It was necessary. She needed to know she couldn't bully me anymore. And Marcus needed to know there was a way out. You think he'll cooperate? He'd be stupid not to. And whatever else Marcus might be, he's not stupid enough to go down for a woman who was clearly using him. The custody hearing happened the next morning. Judge Patricia Wellborn, the same woman who had witnessed Jessica's assault, presided. Victoria Chen laid out our case methodically. Jessica's arrest, her fake identity, her affair, her plan to flee the country, the secret room full of evidence, the stolen money. Jessica's lawyer tried to argue that she was a devoted mother who had been unfairly targeted by a wealthy family trying to steal her children. The judge wasn't buying it. Mrs. Richardson, I witnessed your client physically assault her mother-in-law and threaten her life. I've reviewed the evidence of her intent to flee the jurisdiction with her lover using stolen funds. I've seen the forged documents and the fake identities she prepared. The judge looked at Jessica with barely concealed contempt. Emergency custody is granted to Margaret Richardson. The children will remain in her care pending a full custody evaluation. Mrs. Thornton, or whatever your real name is, you are prohibited from contacting the children without supervision. Any violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. Jessica shot to her feet. You can't do this. Those are my children. Sit down, Mrs. Thornton, or I'll have you removed. This is a conspiracy. She's buying you off. All of you are corrupt. Bailiff, remove her from the courtroom. They dragged Jessica out screaming. It was becoming a pattern. Daniel was waiting outside. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. What happened? Emergency custody granted. The children stay with me. His face crumpled with relief. Thank God. What about me? The judge didn't restrict your access. You can see them whenever you want. But Daniel, there's something you need to understand. Those kids are going to have questions about their mother, about what happened, about why their family fell apart. You need to be ready to answer honestly. No more lies. I know. I've been thinking about it all night. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that her mother is a criminal, that she was planning to abandon them? You don't explain it all at once. You answer what they ask. You tell them the truth in ways they can understand. And you make sure they know every single day that they are loved, that none of this is their fault. Will you help me? I don't know if I can do this alone. I'll help you, but you have to do the work. Therapy, parenting classes, whatever it takes to become the father those children deserve. I will, I promise. I wanted to believe him, but trust once broken takes a long time to rebuild. That afternoon, Rachel called with news. Mark is flipped. He's giving the DA everything. Names, dates, bank accounts, the whole operation. He's terrified of prison. What about Jessica? She's lawyering up hard. Her attorney filed a motion to dismiss the fraud charges. Claims everything was a marital dispute that got out of hand. That's ridiculous. It's a delay tactic. She's trying to buy time. For what? That's what worries me. A woman like Jessica doesn't go down without a fight. She's planning something. I just don't know what yet. I found out 2 days later. I was at Daniel's house packing up the children's belongings when the doorbell rang. A courier stood on the porch holding an envelope. Margaret Richardson. Yes, this is for you. I signed for the envelope and opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a photograph of Emma and Lucas walking into their school, and a typed message. You took my children. I'll take yours. Watch them carefully, Margaret. You never know when an accident might happen. The paper fell from my hands. Jessica was threatening my grandchildren. I called Thomas immediately. Get security to their school. Now. Don't let them out of your sight. What happened? She's coming for the children. She sent a threat. A photograph of them at school. I'm on it. Margaret, don't panic. We'll protect them. Don't panic. Easy for him to say. His grandchildren weren't being stalked by a possible murderer. The police took the threat seriously. They assigned an officer to the school. Thomas hired private security to watch the house around the clock. I moved the children to a safe location that even Daniel didn't know about. For 3 days, nothing happened. Jessica seemed to have vanished. Her lawyer claimed he didn't know where she was. Marcus hadn't heard from her. She'd abandoned the hotel, leaving behind everything except her bag of cash and her fake passports. On the 4th day, Emma's school called. A woman had tried to pick her up, claimed to be her aunt. When the school asked for identification, she fled. The security footage showed Jessica in a blonde wig and sunglasses. She was hunting her own children. I sat in the safe house that night watching Emma and Lucas sleep. These innocent kids who had done nothing wrong, whose only crime was being born to a monster. I made a decision. Jessica wanted a war. She was going to get one. But this time, I wouldn't wait for her to strike. I was going to end this, once and for all. I picked up the phone and called Rachel. I need everything you have on Harold Webster's death. Every detail, every suspicious circumstance, every person who was investigating before the case went cold. Margaret, I told you there's not enough evidence to reopen that case. Then find more. Dig deeper. Talk to Harold's children. Talk to the investigators. Talk to anyone who might have seen something. If Jessica killed her first husband, I want proof. That could take weeks, months. Then you better start now, because that woman is out there planning to hurt my grandchildren. And the only way to stop her permanently is to put her in prison for the rest of her life. Rachel was quiet for a moment. I'll see what I can find. Good. And Rachel, don't tell anyone what you're doing. Not Thomas, not Daniel, not the police. If Jessica finds out we're investigating Harold's death, she might do something desperate. You think she'd kill again? I looked at my sleeping grandchildren. I think she'd do anything to survive, and I think we're the only thing standing between her and freedom, which means we're the only thing standing between her and whatever she's planning next. I hung up the phone and sat in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Jessica was watching, waiting, planning her next move. But she wasn't the only one. Margaret Ellen Richardson was done being the victim, done being patient, done waiting for justice to happen on its own. If the system couldn't stop Jessica, I would. Whatever it took. Rachel called 3 days later with news that changed everything. I found something. Harold Webster's nurse. She's still alive, living in a retirement community outside Detroit. Her name is Gloria Sanchez, and she has a story to tell. Margaret gripped the phone tighter. What kind of story? The kind that could put Jessica away for life. But Gloria's scared. She's been scared for 12 years. She needs to know she'll be protected before she talks. Whatever she needs. Money, security, a new identity, whatever it takes to get her to testify. I'm flying out tomorrow. I'll call you when I have more. Margaret hung up and looked at Daniel, who was sitting across from her at the kitchen table. The safe house was quiet. Emma and Lucas were at school, surrounded by security guards who watched their every move. They might have found something, Margaret said, about Harold Webster. Daniel's face went pale. You really think Jessica killed him? I think your wife was capable of anything. The question is whether we can prove it. She's not my wife anymore. I filed for divorce yesterday. I know. Victoria told me. Mom, I need to ask you something. Daniel's voice cracked. If we prove Jessica murdered someone, what happens to the kids? They'll have to live with the fact that their mother is a killer. How do they ever recover from that? Margaret reached across the table and took her son's hand. Children are resilient, more resilient than we give them credit for. They'll have us. They'll have therapy. They'll have love. That's more than a lot of kids get. I keep thinking about all the nights I slept next to her, all the times she kissed me goodnight, and the whole time she might have been a murderer. How did I not see it? Because she didn't want you to see it. Jessica is a predator. Predators are experts at hiding who they really are. Daniel broke down crying. Margaret held him like she'd held him when he was a little boy afraid of thunderstorms. Some things never changed. Some things couldn't be fixed. But right now, in this moment, they had each other. That night, Jessica struck again. Margaret woke to the sound of breaking glass. She grabbed the phone by her bed and hit the panic button Thomas had installed. Within seconds, security flooded the house. Someone threw a brick through the kitchen window, the head of security reported. They were gone before we could catch them, but they left this. He handed Margaret a note wrapped around the brick. You think you can hide from me? I know where you are. I know where the children are. Give me back what's mine, or I'll burn everything you love to the ground. Margaret's hands shook, but her voice was steady. Call the police and double the security at the children's school. Mrs. Richardson, I think we should consider moving you to a different location. No, I'm done running. If Jessica wants to come for me, let her come. I'll be ready. The police arrived 20 minutes later. They took photos of the broken window, bagged the brick, and the note asked questions that Margaret answered mechanically. None of it would matter. Jessica was too smart to leave fingerprints, too careful to be caught on camera. But she was getting desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. Rachel called from Detroit the next morning. Gloria talked. Margaret, you need to hear this. Put her on speaker. There was a rustling sound, then an elderly woman's voice came through the phone. Mrs. Richardson, my name is Gloria Sanchez. I was Harold Webster's private nurse for the last 6 months of his life. Thank you for speaking with me, Gloria. I know this must be difficult. You have no idea. I've kept this secret for 12 years because I was afraid. But I'm 78 years old now. I have cancer. I'm not going to live much longer, and I don't want to meet my maker with this on my conscience. Tell me what happened. Gloria took a deep breath. Harold was a good man, kind, generous. He married that woman Jessica because he was lonely after his first wife died. He thought she loved him. He didn't see what I saw. What did you see? I saw her putting things in his food, powder. She thought I wasn't watching, but I was. I always watched her because something about her wasn't right. She had dead eyes, Mrs. Richardson, like a shark. Margaret's heart pounded. Did you tell anyone? I told Harold's doctor. He said I was imagining things, that Jessica was a devoted wife who would never hurt her husband. But then Harold started getting sicker. His heart was failing faster than it should have. The medications weren't working like they were supposed to. Because she was poisoning him. I believe so, yes. 2 weeks before Harold died, I confronted Jessica. I told her I knew what she was doing. She smiled at me, the coldest smile I've ever seen. She said if I told anyone, she would make sure I joined Harold in the grave. She said she had friends who could make people disappear. She said no one would believe an immigrant nurse over a grieving widow. So you stayed quiet. I stayed quiet, and I've hated myself every day since. Harold died a week later. The doctors said it was heart failure, but I knew the truth. She murdered him for his money. Margaret closed her eyes. Gloria, would you be willing to testify in court, under oath? Yes, that's why I agreed to talk to your investigator. I'm dying anyway. What can Jessica do to me now? I want justice for Harold. He deserved better than what that monster did to him. You'll have protection, the best lawyers, whatever you need. I don't need anything except to finally tell the truth. God forgive me for waiting so long. After the call ended, Margaret turned to Rachel's voice on the speaker. Is it enough? It's enough to reopen the investigation. Gloria's testimony combined with Harold's medical records could establish a pattern of poisoning, but we need physical evidence, something that proves Jessica had access to whatever she used to kill him. What kind of evidence? The toxicology report from Harold's autopsy was inconclusive, but I pulled the original lab results. They found trace amounts of digoxin in his system, 3 times the therapeutic dose. Digoxin. It's a heart medication. In the right amounts, it treats heart conditions. In high doses, it can cause fatal cardiac arrest. Harold wasn't prescribed digoxin. His wife was. Margaret felt the pieces clicking together. Jessica was poisoning him with her own medication. That's my theory. She had a prescription for digoxin under her maiden name, Kowalski. I found the pharmacy records. She was filling that prescription for 2 years before Harold died and 6 months after. Can you prove she gave it to him? Not directly, but if we can get a court to exhume Harold's body, a modern toxicology test might find evidence that was missed 12 years ago. Technology has improved. We might be able to prove exactly what killed him and in what quantities. Do it. File whatever motions you need to file. I want that body exhumed. Margaret, this is going to make Jessica very, very angry. Good. I want her angry. Angry people make mistakes, and the next mistake she makes will be her last. 2 days later, the motion to exhume Harold Webster's body made the news. Local reporters picked up the story. A wealthy widow accused of poisoning her first husband. A secret past. A web of lies. It was exactly the kind of scandal the media loved. Jessica's face was everywhere. Her fake smile plastered across newspaper front pages and television screens. Reporters camped outside the courthouse where her fraud case was proceeding. Social media exploded with theories and accusations. Margaret watched the coverage from the safe house, Emma curled up beside her on the couch. Grandma, why is Mommy on TV? Margaret muted the television. Grown-up stuff, sweetheart. Nothing you need to worry about. Is Mommy in trouble? Yes. Mommy made some very bad choices, and now she has to face the consequences. Is she going to jail? Margaret hesitated. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that her mother might be a murderer? I don't know yet, baby. But whatever happens, you and Lucas are safe. You're going to stay with Grandma, and everything is going to be okay. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up with serious eyes. Mommy said you were bad. She said you were trying to steal us away from her. Do you believe that? Emma shook her head slowly. No, you're not bad, Grandma. You're the only one who ever made me feel safe. Margaret pulled her granddaughter close and held her tight. Whatever happened with Jessica, these children would know they were loved. They would never doubt that again. That night, Jessica made her move. It started with a phone call at 2 a.m, Daniel's phone. Margaret heard it ringing from down the hall and got up to check on him. Daniel was standing in his doorway, phone pressed to his ear, face white as a ghost. What do you want, Jessica? Margaret couldn't hear Jessica's response, but she saw the terror in Daniel's eyes. Don't you dare threaten them. I'll kill you myself if you touch them. More talking from the other end. You're insane. Completely insane. Daniel lowered the phone and looked at his mother. She wants to meet, tonight. She says if I don't come alone, she'll release photos of the kids to some very dangerous people she knows. She's bluffing. I don't think so. She sounded different, desperate. She said she has nothing left to lose. That's exactly why you can't meet her. Desperate people with nothing to lose are the most dangerous kind. I have to go, Mom. If there's even a chance she could hurt Emma and Lucas, then we call the police. We call Thomas. We don't walk into a trap set by a woman who might have murdered her first husband. She said if she sees anyone but me, the photos go out immediately. She has contacts in places I don't even want to think about. Human trafficking, child exploitation. She threatened to make our kids famous in the worst possible way. Margaret felt sick. This was beyond anything she had imagined. Jessica wasn't just a con artist. She was evil incarnate. Where does she want to meet? By the warehouse district. Midnight. That's in 2 hours. I know. Margaret made a decision. You're not going alone. I'm coming with you. Mom, she said alone. Ma'am. I don't care what she said. We're done playing by her rules. We go together, we record everything, and we end this tonight. Daniel tried to argue, but Margaret wouldn't listen. She called Thomas, who dispatched his security team to shadow them from a distance. She called Rachel, who agreed to have police on standby. Then she got dressed, grabbed the small handgun Thomas had insisted she keep for protection, and walked out to the car with her son. The warehouse district was exactly the kind of place where bad things happened to good people. Abandoned buildings, broken streetlights, the kind of darkness that swallowed screams. Jessica was waiting in an empty parking lot, leaning against a rental car cigarette, glowing in the darkness. You brought her. Jessica's voice dripped with contempt. I said, come alone. My mother goes where I go. You should know that by now. Should I? All I know is that you're a pathetic mama's boy who couldn't make a single decision without her approval. That's funny coming from a woman who has to threaten children to get what she wants. Jessica dropped the cigarette and crushed it under her heel. I want my kids back. I want my money back. I want my life back. Your life was built on lies. You don't get to have it back. Then nobody gets anything. Jessica pulled something from her pocket. A phone. One button, Daniel. One button and photos of Emma and Lucas go to every dark corner of the internet. Every predator, every monster, every sick freak who pays for that kind of thing. You want that on your conscience? Margaret stepped forward. You're bluffing. You don't have those kinds of contacts. Don't I? You think Harold was the only wealthy man I married? There were others before him. Men with connections to very ugly parts of the world. I learned a lot from them. Made friends in low places. You're insane. Maybe. But I'm also desperate. And you made me this way, Margaret. You took everything from me. My husband. My children. My future. Now I'm going to take something from you. What do you want? Drop the investigation into Harold's death. Pay me $5 million. Give me back custody of my children. In exchange, I disappear. You never hear from me again. And if we refuse, Jessica smiled that cold, dead smile. Then I burn it all down. The photos go out. Your precious grandchildren become famous for all the wrong reasons, and I'll make sure everyone knows it's your fault. You could have stopped it. You chose not to. Daniel lunged forward. I'll kill you. 2 men stepped out of the shadows behind Jessica. Big, armed. The kind of men who hurt people for money. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Jessica's voice was calm. My friends here are very protective. One wrong move and they'll put bullets in both of you. Margaret raised her hands slowly. Jessica, listen to me. This doesn't have to end badly. You can still walk away. Walk away to what prison poverty you've destroyed everything I built. I have nothing left. You have your life. That's more than Harold Webster had. Jessica's eye twitched. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. We found Gloria Sanchez, Harold's nurse. She told us everything. The digoxin, the poisoning, the threats you made to keep her quiet. It's over, Jessica. The police are reopening the investigation. They're going to exhume the body. Gloria is a lying immigrant who couldn't find work anywhere else. No one will believe her. Maybe not, but they'll believe the toxicology reports. They'll believe the pharmacy records showing you filled prescriptions for digoxin that Harold never needed. They'll believe the pattern of a woman who marries wealthy men and watches them die. Jessica's composure cracked. Shut up. How many others were there, Jessica, before Harold? Before Daniel. How many men did you destroy? I said shut up. You're not a con artist. You're a serial killer. And now everyone is going to know. Jessica screamed and raised her phone. I'll do it. I'll release the photos. No, you won't. A new voice cut through the darkness. Thomas stepped out from behind a stack of shipping containers, followed by 6 armed security guards. Because I've had my people monitoring your communications for the past week. We know you don't have any photos. We know your threats are empty. We know those men behind you are hired muscle from a temp agency, not criminal masterminds. Jessica's face contorted with rage. You're lying. Am I? Thomas held up his own phone. Your texts to Marcus, your emails to the men you hired, your search history showing you desperately trying to find someone, anyone who would help you threaten 2 innocent children. It's all here, and it's all going to the police. One of the men behind Jessica looked at his partner. She told us this was a custody dispute. She didn't say anything about kids being hurt. Because I'm not hurting anyone, I just wanted my children back. Lady, we didn't sign up for this. Both men turned and walked away into the darkness. Just like that, Jessica's backup evaporated. She stood alone in the parking lot, surrounded by enemies. Her bluff called her schemes exposed. It's over, Jessica. Margaret's voice was surprisingly gentle. There's nowhere left to run, no one left to manipulate. Just surrender. Make this easier on yourself. Easier. Jessica laughed bitterly. There's nothing easy about prison. Nothing easy about losing everything. You want me to just give up. I want you to stop hurting people. I want you to stop threatening children. I want you to face the consequences of your actions for once in your miserable life. Jessica looked at Daniel. I loved you. In the beginning, before your mother poisoned everything. You never loved anyone but yourself. That's not true. I loved what we could have been. I loved the life we were building. I loved being someone's wife, someone's mother. You loved the money, the status, the power. You never loved me. You never loved our children. We were just props in your performance. Maybe you're right. Jessica's voice dropped to a whisper. Maybe I don't know how to love. Maybe that part of me died a long time ago. But that doesn't mean I don't feel anything. I feel rage, Daniel. I feel hatred. I feel betrayed by everyone who was supposed to be on my side. You betrayed us first. Did I? Or did I just play the game better than you expected? In this world, you eat or you get eaten. I chose to eat. You chose to destroy people's lives. I chose to survive. Jessica looked at Margaret. You understand, don't you? You pretended to be poor for 40 years. You hid your empire from everyone, including your own husband. You manipulated the situation to get exactly what you wanted. We're not so different, you and me. We're completely different. I built something. You destroyed everything you touched. Because I was never given the chance to build, I came from nothing. My father was a criminal. My mother was an addict. No one ever gave me anything. Everything I have, I had to take. That doesn't justify murder. Jessica went very still. I never admitted to murdering anyone. You didn't have to. Gloria Sanchez is testifying next week. The exhumation order is signed. In a few days, Harold Webster's body will tell us exactly what you did to him. The fight went out of Jessica. Margaret watched it happen in real time. The rage drained from her face. The defiance crumbled. What was left was something almost sad. A woman who had spent her entire life running from her past and had finally been caught. What happens now? Now we call the police. You surrender peacefully. You get a lawyer. You go through the system like everyone else. And my children. Your children will be safe. They'll be loved. They'll grow up knowing the truth about who you were and what you did. Whether they choose to forgive you someday is up to them. Jessica nodded slowly. I want to see them. One last time. Before everything. That's not going to happen. You threatened their safety. You don't get access to them anymore. Please, Margaret, mother to mother, let me say goodbye. No. Margaret's voice was steel. You lost that right when you threatened to sell their photos to predators. There is no coming back from that. Jessica's shoulders sagged. Then I have nothing left to live for. That's not my problem. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Thomas's people had made the call. Within minutes, Jessica was surrounded by flashing lights and officers with weapons drawn. She went quietly. No screaming, no fighting, just a hollow shell of a woman being loaded into a police car while the world she'd built collapsed around her. Margaret watched until the car disappeared into the night. Mom, are you okay? Daniel stood beside her, looking as exhausted as she felt. I don't know. Ask me again in a few years. I'm sorry. For everything. For believing her. For turning against you. For being so blind. I know. Can you ever forgive me? Margaret looked at her son. 43 years of loving him. 43 years of sacrifice and hope and heartbreak. Could she forgive him for those months of betrayal? For laughing when Jessica wished her dead? For planning to steal from his own mother? I don't know, she said honestly. I want to, but trust has to be rebuilt. That takes time. I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling, whatever you need from me. What I need is for you to be a good father to those children. They're going to need you more than ever. I will, I promise. Don't promise me. Promise them. Daniel nodded. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. Then that's a start. Thomas drove them home as the sun came up. The safe house was quiet. Emma and Lucas were still sleeping, unaware of the drama that had unfolded in the night. Margaret checked on them, watched their peaceful faces, felt the overwhelming love that only grandparents understand. These children would survive this. They would grow up. They would have normal lives filled with normal problems. The shadow of their mother would fade with time, and Margaret would be there, every step of the way. 3 weeks later, the toxicology results from Harold Webster's exhumed body came back. Lethal levels of digoxin, administered over several months. Consistent with deliberate poisoning, Jessica was charged with first-degree murder. The trial made national news. The beautiful con artist who had poisoned one husband and almost destroyed another, the fake identity, the stolen money, the threats against her own children. Jessica never took the stand. Her lawyers tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA wasn't interested. They wanted a trial. They wanted the world to see exactly who Jessica Marie Kowalski really was. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all counts: murder, fraud, theft, conspiracy, making terrorist threats against minors. The judge sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Margaret was in the courtroom when the verdict was read. She watched Jessica's face go blank, watched her being led away in chains, watched the end of a nightmare that had consumed her family for 8 years. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Margaret ignored them all. She found Daniel waiting by the car with Emma and Lucas. Is it over, Grandma? Emma asked. Margaret knelt down and took both children's hands. Yes, sweetheart. It's finally over. Is Mommy going away forever? Yes. She's going to prison for a very long time. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she squeezed Margaret's hand. Good. Just one word. But it said everything. They drove home together. Daniel at the wheel, the children in the back seat, Margaret watching the city pass by through the window. She was 67 years old. She had $55 million. She had a son who was learning to be a better man. She had 2 grandchildren who needed her more than anything, and she had survived. Jessica had tried to destroy her, had called her the old leech, had wished her dead, had threatened everything she loved. But Margaret Ellen Richardson was still standing, and she would keep standing, for her family, for her grandchildren, for herself. Because that's what survivors do. They endure, they overcome, they win, and they never, ever give up. 6 months passed. Life settled into something resembling normal. Emma started 3rd grade. Lucas began kindergarten. Daniel threw himself into therapy 3 times a week, slowly becoming the father his children needed. Margaret sold her modest house and bought a sprawling estate with enough room for everyone. Security systems, panic rooms, everything Thomas insisted she needed to keep the family safe. But Margaret knew better than anyone that safety was an illusion. Jessica was in prison, but the damage she left behind was still spreading like poison through their lives. It started with a letter. Margaret found it in the mailbox on a Tuesday morning. No return address. Her name typed in plain black letters. She almost threw it away without opening it. Junk mail, she assumed. Another solicitation from some charity she'd never heard of. But something made her pause. Something about the weight of the envelope, the quality of the paper. She opened it standing in the driveway. The letter was handwritten, elegant script that looked almost Victorian. Dear Mrs. Richardson, you don't know me, but I know everything about you. I know about Jessica. I know about Harold. I know about the fortune you've been hiding for 40 years. I also know things the police never found, things that could destroy your family all over again. If you want to keep your grandchildren safe, meet me at the Riverside Cafe tomorrow at noon. Come alone. Tell no one. This is not a threat. This is an opportunity. No signature, no name, just those ominous words printed in careful, deliberate strokes. Margaret's hands trembled. She looked around the quiet street. Nothing out of place. No suspicious cars. No strangers watching from the shadows. But someone knew. Someone had been watching. Someone wanted something from her. She should call Thomas. She should call the police. She should do exactly what a reasonable person would do when confronted with an anonymous threat. Instead, she folded the letter carefully and put it in her pocket. Tomorrow at noon. Riverside Cafe. Alone. She would find out who was behind this, and then she would deal with them the same way she'd dealt with Jessica. The Riverside Cafe was a small bistro downtown, the kind of place where business people had power lunches and wealthy women gossiped over salads. Margaret arrived 15 minutes early. She chose a table near the back where she could see everyone who entered. She ordered coffee and waited. At exactly noon, a woman walked in. Tall, elegant, silver hair swept into a perfect chignon, designer suit, pearls. She looked like money. Old money, the real kind that Jessica had always pretended to have. The woman scanned the room, spotted Margaret, and walked directly to her table. Mrs. Richardson, thank you for coming. Who are you? The woman sat down without being invited. My name is Catherine Webster. Harold was my brother. Margaret felt the blood drain from her face. Harold's sister. His only sister. His only living relative besides his children, who, as you probably know, have spent the last 12 years trying to prove that Jessica murdered him. They succeeded. She's in prison for life. Yes, thanks in large part to your investigation. The family owes you a debt of gratitude. Then why the mysterious letter? Why the threats about destroying my family? Catherine smiled. It was not a warm smile. I needed to get your attention. I needed you to take me seriously. Direct invitations are so easily ignored. What do you want? I want to help you, Mrs. Richardson, and I want you to help me. Help you with what? Catherine leaned forward. Jessica didn't act alone. She never acts alone. There's always someone behind her, someone pulling the strings, someone who taught her how to find wealthy men, seduce them, and drain them dry. Margaret felt a chill run down her spine. What are you talking about? I'm talking about a network, Mrs. Richardson, a network of women who do exactly what Jessica did. They target wealthy widowers, they marry them, they inherit their fortunes, and then they move on to the next victim. That's insane. Think about it. Jessica was 22 when she married my brother. She had no money, no connections, no education. How did she even meet him? How did she know exactly how to manipulate him? How did she know which drugs to use? How to avoid detection? How to play the grieving widow so convincingly? Margaret had wondered the same things. She had assumed Jessica was simply a natural predator, a sociopath born with the instincts to destroy. You're saying someone trained her. I'm saying someone recruited her. Someone who saw a desperate young woman from a broken home and recognized raw potential. Someone who molded her into the perfect weapon. Who? Catherine pulled out a photograph and slid it across the table. A woman in her 60s, silver blonde hair, sharp features, cold eyes that reminded Margaret of Jessica. Her name is Victoria Ashworth. She runs a charity for disadvantaged young women, teaches them etiquette deportment, how to present themselves in high society. On the surface, it's completely legitimate. Underneath, it's a training ground for gold diggers and worse. How do you know this? Because I've spent 12 years investigating my brother's death. The police gave up. Harold's children gave up. But I never stopped looking. I hired investigators. I followed leads. I talked to every woman who ever passed through Victoria Ashworth's program. And 3 of them are dead, 2 are in prison, 7 more are currently married to wealthy older men whose health has been mysteriously declining, and Victoria Ashworth has made millions in consulting fees and grateful donations from her graduates. Margaret stared at the photograph. Another predator. Another monster hiding behind a respectable facade. Why come to me? Why not go to the police? Because Victoria is protected. She has connections in law enforcement, in politics, in the media. Every time someone tries to investigate her, the investigation gets shut down. Witnesses disappear. Evidence vanishes. She's untouchable. And you think I can touch her? I think you have resources the police don't have. I think you have motivation they don't have. And I think you have something Victoria doesn't expect. What's that? You've already beaten one of her best students. You've proven you can fight back and win. Victoria doesn't know about you yet. She thinks Jessica failed because of bad luck, not because she ran into someone smarter than her. That gives you an advantage. Margaret picked up the photograph and studied it. Victoria Ashworth, the woman who had created Jessica. The woman responsible for Harold Webster's death. The woman who was still out there, still recruiting, still destroying families. What exactly are you proposing? Catherine smiled that cold smile again. I'm proposing we take her down together. Your resources, my information. We expose Victoria Ashworth and we destroy the network she's built. We make sure no one else dies the way my brother died. And what do you get out of it? Justice, closure, the knowledge that my brother's death meant something, that his murder led to the destruction of the people responsible. Margaret thought about Emma and Lucas, about Daniel trying to rebuild his life, about the peaceful existence she had finally achieved after so much pain. She should walk away. She should take her family and disappear. Let the police handle Victoria Ashworth. Let someone else fight this battle. But she knew what would happen if she walked away. Victoria would keep recruiting, keep training. Keep sending women like Jessica into the world to destroy innocent people. How many more Harold Websters would die? How many more families would be torn apart? I need to think about this. Of course, take all the time you need. But Mrs. Richardson, don't take too long. Victoria is already looking for Jessica's replacement. Somewhere out there, a young woman is being groomed to do exactly what Jessica did. The only question is whether we stop her before she claims another victim. Catherine stood and placed a business card on the table. Call me when you're ready. She walked out without looking back. Margaret sat alone with her cold coffee and the photograph of Victoria Ashworth. Another battle, another enemy, another chance to protect her family or watch it be destroyed. She had thought the nightmare was over. It was only just beginning. That night, Margaret called Thomas. I need you to investigate someone. Victoria Ashworth. She runs a charity called the Ashworth Foundation. The etiquette school for disadvantaged women, I've heard of it. Very reputable. Maybe not as reputable as it seems. Can you look into her background quietly? What's this about Margaret? She told him everything. The letter, the meeting, Catherine Webster's accusations. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. This is dangerous territory. If Ashworth is really connected like Catherine says, we could be kicking a hornet's nest. I know, but I can't ignore this. If there's even a chance she's responsible for what happened to our family, I'll look into it. But Margaret, promise me you won't do anything reckless. I'm 67 years old, Thomas. I don't have the energy for reckless anymore. That's not reassuring. You just spent 6 months taking down a possible serial killer. Reckless seems to be your default setting these days. Just find out what you can. I'll wait for your report before deciding anything. 3 days later, Thomas arrived at Margaret's house with a thick folder and a grim expression. It's worse than Catherine said. They sat in Margaret's study with the door closed. Daniel was picking up the kids from school. They had at least an hour alone. Victoria Ashworth has been running her foundation for 23 years. In that time, 47 women have graduated from her elite mentorship program. Of those, 19 are currently married to men over 60, with net worth exceeding $10 million. That could be coincidence. The program teaches women how to move in wealthy circles. 8 of those 19 husbands have died within 5 years of marriage. Causes of death include heart failure, stroke, accidental overdose, and one suspicious fall down a staircase. Margaret's stomach turned. 8. And that's just the ones we can confirm. 3 of the widows remarried within a year. 2 of those second husbands are also dead. How is this possible? How has no one noticed? Because the deaths are spread out over 20 years in multiple states, different police departments, different coroners. No one is looking at the big picture. Until now. Thomas nodded. I also found something else. Victoria Ashworth's financial records show regular payments to a law firm that specializes in estate planning. The same law firm that handled Jessica's inheritance from Harold Webster. She's connected to Jessica's case. More than connected. The lawyer who helped Jessica establish her fake identity, he's a partner at that firm. Victoria has been using him to clean up her students' backgrounds for years. Margaret picked up the folder and flipped through the pages. Financial records, death certificates, marriage licenses, a pattern of destruction spanning 2 decades. We have to stop her. Margaret, think about this carefully. Victoria Ashworth has resources, connections, and apparently no problem with murder. Going after her is not like going after Jessica. Jessica was desperate and alone. Victoria has an entire network protecting her. So we build our own network. Catherine Webster has been investigating for 12 years. She must have allies, contacts, people who want to see Victoria brought down. And what about the police? Why not just hand this information over and let them handle it? Catherine says Victoria has people inside law enforcement. Anyone we talk to could tip her off. Then we go federal, FBI. They investigate serial killers. Do we have enough evidence for that? All we have is circumstantial connections, suspicious deaths that were ruled natural causes, a pattern that could be dismissed as coincidence. Thomas rubbed his temples. You're right. We need more. Something concrete that ties Victoria directly to a crime. Then we get it. We infiltrate her organization. We find someone on the inside willing to talk. That's incredibly dangerous. So is doing nothing. Every day we wait, Victoria is grooming another Jessica. Another family is being targeted. Another man is going to die because we were too cautious to act. Thomas looked at his sister with something like admiration. You've changed, Margaret. 6 months ago, you were hiding in your house afraid of your own daughter-in-law. Now you're ready to take on a criminal empire. 6 months ago, I was a victim. I'm not a victim anymore. And I'm not going to let anyone else become one either. All right, what's the plan? Margaret smiled. First, we call Catherine Webster. Then we start building our case. And then we take down Victoria Ashworth the same way we took down Jessica. One piece at a time until there's nothing left. Catherine answered on the second ring. I was wondering when you'd call. I'm in. What do you need from me? Money, primarily. My resources are nearly exhausted. I've been funding this investigation alone for over a decade, but with your backing, we can accelerate things considerably. What's the next step? I have a contact inside the Ashworth Foundation, a woman named Sarah Chen. She went through the program 15 years ago, but she never married anyone. She stayed on as an instructor. Why didn't she follow the same path as the others? Because she saw what happened to a friend, a fellow graduate named Maria Santos. Maria married a wealthy industrialist in Texas. 2 years later, he was dead, and Maria was facing questions from his children about inconsistencies in the will. Sarah tried to help her, but Victoria found out. Maria disappeared. Officially, she moved abroad. Sarah believes she was killed. And Sarah is willing to testify. She's willing to talk. Testifying is another matter. She's terrified of Victoria, with good reason. Can we protect her? With enough resources, yes. That's where you come in. Safe House's security eventually witness protection if we can get federal authorities involved. Set up a meeting. I want to talk to Sarah myself. I'll arrange it, but Margaret, be careful. Victoria has eyes everywhere. If she finds out what we're doing before we're ready to move, we'll all end up like Maria Santos. I understand. Because this isn't like Jessica. Jessica was a single predator. Victoria is the head of a hydra. Cut off one head and 2 more grow back. We need to destroy the entire organization, not just the woman running it. Then that's what we'll do, whatever it takes. The meeting with Sarah Chen happened a week later in a nondescript hotel room outside the city. Catherine arranged the location. Thomas provided security. Margaret went in alone. Sarah was younger than Margaret expected, mid-30s, pretty in a worn, tired way. She sat on the edge of the bed like she was ready to run at the first sign of trouble. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." Sarah's eyes darted around the room. "Catherine says you took down Jessica Thornton. Is that true?" "Yes. She was one of Victoria's favorites. Everyone said she was destined for great things. Then she disappeared, and we heard she'd been arrested for murder. She's in prison for the rest of her life." Sarah let out a shaky breath. "Good. That woman was a monster, even by our standards. Your standards. The Foundation's standards. We're not supposed to hurt anyone. That's what Victoria always said. Find a wealthy older man, make him happy, be a good wife, inherit naturally when he dies. No violence, no poison, just patience. But that's not what happens. No, some of us followed the rules. Married old men and waited. But the ambitious ones, the ones Victoria really invested in, they found shortcuts. Harold Webster wasn't the first man to die ahead of schedule. He wasn't the last. And Victoria knew about this. Victoria encouraged it, subtly. She never said, "Kill your husband." But she taught us which medications interacted badly, which conditions could be worsened with the right diet, how to make a death look natural. She called it advanced estate planning. How many women did she train this way? I don't know exactly. Dozens, maybe more. Victoria has been doing this for over 20 years. I was in the program for 3 years before I realized what was really going on. "Why did you stay?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Because I had nowhere else to go. Victoria found me when I was 19, homeless, addicted. She cleaned me up, gave me a purpose, made me feel like I was part of something important. By the time I understood what that something really was, I was in too deep to get out." "But you didn't marry anyone. You didn't follow the program." "No. After Maria disappeared, I couldn't do it anymore. I told Victoria I wanted to stay and teach instead. She agreed because I was useful. I knew how the system worked. I could train new recruits without Victoria having to get her hands dirty." "Do you have proof, documents, recordings, anything that could tie Victoria directly to the deaths?" Sarah hesitated. "I have some things. Notes from meetings, emails that were supposed to be deleted, a recording I made of Victoria explaining how to stage an accidental overdose." Margaret's heart leaped. "You recorded her." "I've been recording her for years, ever since Maria. I knew someday I might need leverage, protection." "Can you give us those recordings?" "I can give you copies. The originals stay with me. Insurance." "That's fair. When can you get them to us?" "It'll take a few days. I have to be careful. Victoria watches everyone. If she finds out I've been talking to you, we'll protect you. Safe house, security, whatever you need." "I've heard that before, from Maria." "Right before she vanished." "I'm not going to let that happen to you, I promise." Sarah studied Margaret's face for a long moment. "You really believe you can take Victoria down?" "I took down Jessica. I can take down Victoria." "Jessica was a student. Victoria is the master. She's been doing this longer than you've been hiding your fortune. She knows every trick, every angle, every way to make problems disappear. Then we'll have to be smarter than her, more careful, more determined. Or we'll end up dead." That's a possibility I've accepted. The question is whether you've accepted it too. Sarah was quiet. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I've been dead inside for 15 years, ever since I watched them load Maria into a car and drive away. If taking down Victoria means I actually die for real, at least it'll mean something. At least Maria won't have disappeared for nothing. Then we're partners. Partners! Sarah almost smiled. I haven't had a partner in anything for a very long time. Now you do. And together we're going to destroy Victoria Ashworth and everything she built. The recordings arrived 3 days later, digital files on an encrypted drive delivered by a courier who had no idea what he was carrying. Margaret Thomas and Catherine gathered in Thomas's office to listen. Victoria's voice came through crystal clear. The key is patience. Digoxin works slowly. 3 months minimum, 6 months ideally. By the time anyone notices something is wrong, the damage is irreversible. Another recording. Make sure the insurance policies are updated before you start. You don't want to be stuck with a dead husband and no payout. Another. If the family starts asking questions, cry. A lot. Grieving widows are above suspicion. Anyone who questions you looks heartless. And another. Maria got sloppy. She moved too fast, got greedy. Let that be a lesson to all of you. This is a long game. Patience is rewarded. Impatience gets you caught. The room was silent when the last recording ended. That's it, Catherine breathed. That's what we needed. She admits to everything. We need to get this to the FBI, Thomas said. This is way beyond local law enforcement. Agreed, but we need to be careful who we contact. Victoria has connections everywhere. I know someone, Margaret said. Rachel Park, my investigator. She used to be FBI. She still has contacts she trusts. Can she get us a meeting? Let me call her. Rachel came through within 24 hours. A meeting was arranged with Special Agent Michael Torres, head of a task force investigating financial crimes targeting elderly victims. They met in a secure location. No phones, no recording devices, just the evidence and the truth. Agent Torres listened to the recordings 3 times. He reviewed the documents Sarah had provided. He asked questions for 2 hours. When he finally spoke, his voice was grim. This is the biggest case I've seen in 20 years. You're talking about a criminal enterprise that spans 2 decades, multiple states, and potentially dozens of deaths. Can you prosecute? Margaret asked. With what you've given us, we can absolutely prosecute. But taking down an organization this size requires planning, coordination. We need to move against Victoria and her network simultaneously, or the people at the edges will scatter. How long? 6 months minimum. Maybe a year. A year. How many more people will die in a year? I understand your urgency, Mrs. Richardson, but rushing this will only result in Victoria walking free. We need airtight cases against everyone involved. That takes time. What can we do to help? Stay quiet. Don't approach Victoria or anyone connected to her. Let us build our case without tipping them off. When we're ready to move, you'll be the first to know. Margaret wanted to argue, wanted to demand faster action, but she knew Torres was right. Patience had gotten her this far. Patience would see it through. All right, we'll wait. But Agent Torres, if Victoria hurts anyone else while we're waiting, then we'll add those charges to the pile. One way or another, Victoria Ashworth is going to prison. I give you my word. The months that followed were the hardest of Margaret's life, harder than watching Daniel fall under Jessica's spell, harder than hearing her son wish her dead, harder than any of the battles she'd already fought. Because this time, she couldn't do anything. She could only wait. Wait while the FBI built their case. Wait while Victoria continued recruiting. Wait while somewhere out there another woman was being trained to destroy another family. But she used the time well. She strengthened her relationship with Daniel, who was making real progress in therapy. She helped Emma and Lucas adjust to their new normal, answering their questions about their mother with honesty and compassion. She built a life that would survive whatever came next. And then, 11 months after her meeting with Agent Torres, her phone rang. It's happening. Tomorrow morning. Coordinated raids in 6 states. Victoria Ashworth and 23 members of her network are being arrested simultaneously. Margaret closed her eyes and let out a breath she'd been holding for almost a year. "Thank you." "No, Mrs. Richardson, thank you. Without your resources and your determination, we never would have cracked this case. Victoria Ashworth has been operating for over 2 decades. You brought her down in less than 1. I had help. Catherine Webster, Sarah Chen, everyone who risked their lives to expose the truth. And they'll all be recognized when this goes public. But the person who made it possible was you. Don't forget that." The next morning, Margaret watched the news with Daniel and Thomas by her side. Victoria Ashworth being led out of her mansion in handcuffs, her face a mask of shock and fury. 23 other arrests across the country, women she had recruited, lawyers who had helped cover her tracks, a network of evil dismantled in a single coordinated strike. The newscasters talked about the scope of the investigation, dozens of suspicious deaths being re-examined, families finally getting answers about loved ones who had died under mysterious circumstances. Justice, finally. Daniel put his arm around his mother. "You did this. You stopped her. We all did. Together. Do you think it's really over now? All the people who wanted to hurt us?" Margaret thought about Jessica rotting in prison, about Victoria being processed at a federal facility, about all the women who had been trained to destroy families like hers. "I don't know if it's ever really over," she said honestly. "There will always be people who prey on others, but we stopped these ones. We saved the families they would have targeted. That has to count for something." "It counts for everything." That afternoon, Emma came home from school with a drawing she'd made in art class. It showed a house with a big yard, a grandmother with gray hair, a father with a smile, and 2 children playing in the sunshine. "That's our family," Emma explained. "Our real family, the one that's going to last forever." Margaret hung the drawing on the refrigerator and felt tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness, not tears of pain, tears of hope. After everything they'd been through, hope was still possible, and that Margaret realized was the greatest victory of all. 2 years had passed since Victoria Ashworth's arrest. The trials were finally over. Victoria received 4 consecutive life sentences. 17 of her graduates pleaded guilty to various charges ranging from fraud to murder. The Ashworth Foundation was dismantled, its assets seized, its victims compensated from a fund Margaret helped establish. Sarah Chen entered witness protection with a new name and a fresh start. Catherine Webster finally found the closure she had been seeking for 15 years. Harold's children reached out to Margaret with a letter of gratitude that made her cry for an hour. Life was good, better than good. Life was everything Margaret had hoped it could be. Emma was 10 now, a bright girl with her father's intelligence and her grandmother's stubbornness. Lucas was 8, still full of boundless energy, but learning to channel it into sports and schoolwork. Daniel had completed 2 years of intensive therapy and had become, against all odds, a genuinely good father. Margaret turned 69 on a sunny Saturday in April. Thomas threw her a party at his estate, family, friends, colleagues from her real estate empire, people who had watched her transform from a quiet widow into a force of nature. "Speech!" Thomas called out as the cake was presented. "The birthday girl has to give a speech." Margaret stood before the crowd and felt something she hadn't felt in decades. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. 3 years ago, I was invisible, a mother no one respected, a grandmother no one wanted around. I spent my whole life hiding who I really was because I was afraid. Afraid of being seen, afraid of being judged, afraid of what would happen if people knew the truth about me. She looked at Daniel, who was holding Lucas on his shoulders, while Emma clung to his hand. Then my family was attacked, and I learned something important. The only thing worse than being afraid is letting fear control your life. I stopped hiding. I stopped pretending. I fought back, and I won. Applause rippled through the crowd. But I didn't win alone. My brother Thomas, my investigator Rachel, my son Daniel, who found his way back to me after losing himself for so long, and my grandchildren Emma and Lucas, who remind me every single day why fighting matters. She raised her glass. To family, the real kind. The kind that stands together when everything falls apart. The kind that forgives and heals and grows stronger. That's what I'm celebrating today. Not getting older, getting wiser, getting braver, getting home. The party continued late into the evening. Margaret eventually retreated to a quiet corner of Thomas's garden, needing a moment away from the noise and the celebration. Daniel found her there, sitting on a stone bench, looking up at the stars. "Mind if I join you? Please." He sat down beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I've been thinking about Jessica," Daniel finally said. Margaret tensed. "Why?" "Because I got a letter from her yesterday, from prison, first contact in over a year." "What did she want?" "To apologize. She said she's been going through some kind of rehabilitation program, found religion, wants to make amends." "Do you believe her?" Daniel laughed bitterly. "No, Jessica doesn't know how to be genuine. Everything she does is calculated, even her apologies." "Then why are you thinking about her?" "Because she asked to see the kids. Says she wants to explain things to them. Wants them to understand why she did what she did." Margaret felt her blood run cold. "Absolutely not." "I know. I already wrote back and told her no. But Mom Emma has been asking questions lately. About her mother. About what really happened. She's old enough now to understand some of it." "What have you told her?" "The basics. That her mother made very bad choices. That she hurt people. That she's in prison because of those choices. But Emma wants more. She wants to know why. There is no why. Jessica is what she is. A predator, a monster. There's no explanation that will make sense to a 10-year-old. Maybe not. But at some point, Emma is going to go looking for answers herself. She's going to read the news stories, watch the trial footage, find out all the details we've been protecting her from. Wouldn't it be better if she heard it from us first?" Margaret sighed heavily. Daniel was right. They couldn't protect Emma from the truth forever. "What do you suggest? Family therapy. All of us together, with a professional who specializes in this kind of trauma. We tell Emma and Lucas the truth age-appropriately and help them process it. And if they want to see their mother afterward, then we discuss it, as a family. But I don't think they will. Emma already told me she doesn't miss Jessica. She said having Grandma is better than having a mom who was always angry." Margaret felt tears welling up. "She said that..." "She says a lot of things, Mom. You're her hero, the woman who saved their family, the woman who makes them feel safe. Whatever Jessica was supposed to be to those kids, you've become something better. I never wanted to replace her. You didn't replace her. You filled a void she created. There's a difference." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. "I'm proud of you, Daniel. The man you've become, the father you are now. I had a good example. It just took me way too long to realize it. Better late than never. That should be the family motto. Better late than never. The Richardsons. We get there eventually." Margaret laughed. For the first time in years, it felt natural, unforced, free. The family therapy sessions began a month later. Dr. Patricia Okonkwo came highly recommended by Thomas's network of specialists. She was calm, compassionate, and completely unintimidated by the complexity of the Richardson family history. "Before we begin working with the children," she explained at their first session, "I need to understand the full scope of what happened, not the news version, the real version." Margaret told her everything. The years of abuse, the isolation, the discovery of Jessica's true nature, the confrontations, the trials, Victoria Ashworth, all of it. Dr. Okonkwo listened without judgment. "Your family has been through extraordinary trauma, multiple betrayals, life-threatening situations, public exposure. The fact that you're all still functioning, still together, still committed to healing is remarkable." "We're Richardsons," Daniel said. "We're stubborn." Stubbornness can be a survival trait, but it can also prevent healing if it means refusing to acknowledge pain. The work we're going to do here will require vulnerability from all of you. "We're ready," Margaret said. "Whatever it takes." The sessions with Emma and Lucas began the following week. Dr. Okonkwo used age-appropriate language and techniques, letting the children lead the conversation while gently guiding them toward understanding. Emma asked the hardest questions. Did Mommy ever love us, or were we just part of her plan? Dr. Okonkwo looked at Margaret and Daniel, inviting them to respond. Daniel knelt in front of his daughter. I believe your mother loved you in her own way. But she was sick, Emma, not physically sick in her mind and her heart. She didn't know how to love properly because no one ever taught her. Is that why she did bad things? It's one reason, but it's not an excuse. Lots of people have hard childhoods and don't hurt others. Your mother made choices, bad choices, and now she's facing the consequences. Will she ever get out of prison? No, sweetheart. She's going to be there for the rest of her life. Emma was quiet for a moment. Good. I don't want her to get out. Why do you say that? Because she scared me. She was always angry. She said mean things about Grandma. She made Daddy cry when she thought I wasn't watching. I don't want her to come back and make everyone sad again. Margaret pulled Emma into a hug. She's never coming back, I promise you that. I know, Grandma, because you won't let her. You're stronger than she is. We're all stronger than she is, because we have each other. Lucas had fewer questions but bigger emotions. He remembered less of Jessica than Emma did, but he carried a vague sense of fear that he couldn't articulate. I had bad dreams, he told Dr. Okonkwo. About a lady with cold hands. She was trying to take me somewhere dark. Do you still have those dreams? Not anymore. Not since I started sleeping at Grandma's house. Grandma keeps the monsters away. Margaret felt her heart crack and mend simultaneously. This little boy who had lived with a monster without knowing it, who had absorbed fear through his skin like poison. Now he felt safe. Now he could sleep. That was worth everything she had sacrificed, everything she had risked. The therapy continued for 6 months. Gradually, the family found a new equilibrium. The children understood their history without being defined by it. Daniel finally forgave himself for the years he had spent under Jessica's control, and Margaret learned to accept that she had done everything right even when it didn't feel that way. On the anniversary of Jessica's conviction, Margaret received an unexpected visitor. Rachel Park showed up at her door with a folder and a troubled expression. We need to talk. They sat in Margaret's study with the door closed. What's wrong? Jessica has been communicating with someone outside prison, someone we didn't know about. Margaret's blood went cold. Who? Her daughter. What are you talking about? Emma and Lucas haven't had any contact with her. Not Emma and Lucas, her other daughter, the one she gave up for adoption when she was 17. Margaret stared at Rachel in shock. Jessica has another child, had, before Harold, before the Ashworth Foundation, when she was still Jessica Kowalski living on the streets of Detroit. She got pregnant by a boyfriend, gave the baby up because she couldn't afford to raise her. The adoption was closed, no contact. Until now. Until now. The daughter, her name is Melissa, tracked down her birth mother 2 years ago. They've been corresponding ever since. Letters. Phone calls. Jessica has been telling her everything, about the family, about you, about what she calls her wrongful conviction. Wrongful conviction? She pleaded guilty. Jessica tells a different story to Melissa. In her version, she's an innocent woman destroyed by a vindictive mother-in-law with unlimited resources, a victim of wealth and power. And Melissa believes her. Melissa has been visiting Jessica in prison monthly. She's hired a lawyer to look into appealing the conviction. She's been posting on social media, building a following of people who think Jessica was framed. Margaret felt sick. After everything they had been through, after all the evidence, the testimony, the confessions, there was still someone out there defending Jessica. What can we do? Legally nothing. Melissa has the right to believe whatever she wants, to advocate for her birth mother, to try to overturn the conviction. Can she succeed? Not likely. The evidence against Jessica is overwhelming. But she can cause trouble, drag the family back into the spotlight, force Emma and Lucas to relive everything. I won't let that happen. I know. That's why I'm telling you. So you can be prepared. Margaret stared at the folder in Rachel's hands. What else is in there? Background on Melissa. Her life, her history, her vulnerabilities. You want me to go after her. I want you to know your enemy. What you do with that information is up to you. Margaret took the folder and opened it. Melissa was 28 years old. Pretty. Brown hair and green eyes like Jessica. She had grown up in a middle-class family in Ohio. College degree in communications. Worked as a marketing consultant. No criminal record. No history of violence. Just a woman who wanted to know her birth mother. Who had the terrible luck of discovering that mother was a murderer. She's innocent, Margaret said quietly. She didn't do anything wrong. She's trying to free a murderer. That's not exactly innocent. She's trying to save the mother she never knew. Based on lies Jessica told her. Melissa is another victim, Rachel, just like the rest of us. So, what do you want to do? Margaret closed the folder. I want to meet her. Rachel's eyebrows shot up. That's a terrible idea. Maybe, but Melissa deserves to know the truth. The real truth, not Jessica's version of it. If I can show her who her birth mother really is, maybe she'll stop trying to set her free. Or maybe she'll double down, believe Jessica even more, attack you even harder. That's a risk I'm willing to take. Arrange a meeting, Rachel. Tell Melissa that Margaret Richardson wants to talk. If she has any courage at all, she'll show up. The meeting took place 2 weeks later in a neutral location, a conference room at a hotel downtown. Rachel provided security. Thomas provided lawyers in case things went sideways. Melissa walked in alone. She was smaller than Margaret expected, nervous. Her hands trembled as she sat down across the table. Thank you for coming, Margaret said. I almost didn't. My lawyer said this was a trap. It's not a trap. I just want to talk. About what? About how you destroyed my mother's life. How you used your money and power to put her in prison for crimes she didn't commit. Is that what Jessica told you? She told me everything. How you were jealous of her from the start. How you tried to turn Daniel against her. How you fabricated evidence and bribed witnesses. And you believe that, why shouldn't I? Jessica is my mother. She has no reason to lie to me. Margaret pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Read this. What is it? The truth? Not Jessica's version, not my version. The documented, verified, undeniable truth. Melissa opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were copies of court documents, testimony transcripts, the recordings of Victoria Ashworth, photos of the secret room in Jessica's basement, evidence of the affair with Marcus, financial records showing the stolen money. This is all fabricated. Is it? Look at the dates, the signatures, the authentication stamps. Every piece of evidence in that folder was verified by independent experts, presented in court, accepted by the jury. Juries make mistakes. 12 juries. Because that's how many trials were connected to this case. Jessica's, Victoria Ashworth's, 17 of Victoria's other graduates. Every single one resulted in conviction. Every single one was based on the same type of evidence. Melissa was crying now. You don't understand. She's my mother, the only birth family I have. I spent my whole life wondering who I came from, why I was given away. And now I finally found her, and you're telling me she's a monster. I'm telling you she's dangerous. I'm telling you she killed at least one man and possibly more. I'm telling you she manipulated my son, abused my grandchildren, threatened to sell their photos to predators, and tried to have me declared mentally incompetent so she could steal my fortune. She said you would say that. Of course she did. Jessica is smarter than both of us combined. She's been manipulating people her entire life. She manipulated Harold Webster. She manipulated my son. She's manipulating you right now. No, she loves me. She said I was the only good thing she ever did. She gave you up for adoption and never looked back. You found her, Melissa, not the other way around. If you hadn't searched for her, she never would have contacted you. Does that sound like love? Melissa sobbed, her whole body shaking, the fantasy she had built about her birth mother crumbling around her. Margaret walked around the table and knelt beside her. I'm not your enemy. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to save you from the same fate that befell everyone else who trusted Jessica. She doesn't love you. She doesn't love anyone. She's using you to attack the people who put her away. Once she has no more use for you, she'll discard you just like she discarded everyone else. I don't believe you. Then visit Harold Webster's children. Talk to Sarah Chen in witness protection. Talk to the families of the other men who died because of Victoria Ashworth's network. Talk to anyone who actually knew Jessica before she went to prison. See what they tell you. Melissa looked up with red-rimmed eyes. Why do you care what I do? Because I have 2 grandchildren who have already lost their mother. I won't let them be dragged back into this nightmare because Jessica found a new weapon to use against us. And because honestly, I feel sorry for you. You wanted to find your family. You found a snake instead. That's not your fault. What do you want from me? I want you to stop the appeals process. Stop the social media campaign. Stop trying to free a woman who will only cause more pain if she ever gets out. Go back to your life in Ohio. Find happiness. Let Jessica rot in prison where she belongs. And if I don't, then I'll have no choice but to fight you, with everything I have, every lawyer, every investigator, every resource at my disposal. I will make your life very difficult, Melissa. Not because I want to, because I have to protect my family. Is that a threat? It's a promise. The same promise I made to Jessica. The same promise I made to Victoria Ashworth. I don't start fights, but I finish them. Melissa was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the folder full of evidence, at Margaret kneeling beside her, at her own shaking hands. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. But Melissa, don't take too long. Every day you spend defending Jessica is a day you're not living your own life. Don't let her steal your future the way she stole everyone else's. Margaret stood and walked to the door. Wait, she turned back. If I stop, if I walk away, will you leave me alone? I have no interest in hurting you. I never did. All I want is for my family to be safe. You can be part of that safety or a threat to it. The choice is yours. Margaret left without looking back. 3 weeks later, Melissa withdrew the appeal. She deleted her social media posts. She stopped visiting Jessica in prison. Rachel reported that Melissa had returned to Ohio and started seeing a therapist specializing in family trauma. She was beginning the long process of grieving the mother she had imagined and accepting the mother she had found. Another victim of Jessica Thornton's slowly healing, another battle won without bloodshed. Margaret celebrated quietly with Daniel and the children. Pizza and a movie in the living room. Emma and Lucas fighting over the remote. Daniel laughing at their antics. Normal family stuff. The kind of normal that Jessica had tried to destroy. "Hey, Mom," Daniel said during a quiet moment while the kids were arguing about toppings. "Yes, thank you for everything. For fighting when I couldn't. For protecting the kids when I failed them. For giving us a second chance we didn't deserve. You're my son. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you." "I know. That's what makes it so amazing. After everything I did, everything I said, you still fought for me." That's what mothers do. We fight for our children, even when they don't deserve it, even when they break our hearts. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that. You already are. Look at those kids, Daniel. Happy, healthy, loved. That's because of you. That's because you chose to change. I chose because you showed me it was possible. You showed me that monsters can be beaten, that broken things can be fixed. Not everything can be fixed, but the important things can. Family, love, trust, those can always be rebuilt. Emma ran over and jumped onto Margaret's lap. "Grandma Lucas is hogging all the pepperoni." "Am not," Lucas shouted from across the room. "Are too." Margaret laughed and pulled Emma close. "I think there's enough pepperoni for everyone." "That's what you always say, because it's always true." Later that night, after the children were in bed and Daniel had gone home to his own apartment nearby, Margaret sat alone in her study. She looked at the photographs on her desk, Robert smiling from their wedding day, Daniel as a baby, Emma and Lucas at the beach, Thomas at the helm of his private jet, her family, her legacy, her reason for everything. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, The years of hiding her wealth, the marriage to Robert, raising Daniel, losing Robert, watching Daniel fall under Jessica's spell, fighting back, winning, finding new enemies, defeating them too. She was 69 years old. She had $55 million. She had a brother who would move mountains for her, a son who was finally becoming the man he was meant to be, 2 grandchildren who would never doubt they were loved. And she had herself, Margaret Ellen Richardson, survivor, fighter, victor, the woman Jessica had called the old leech, the woman Victoria Ashworth had never seen coming, the woman who had taken on a criminal empire and won. She picked up a pen and began writing. A letter to Emma and Lucas to be opened on their 18th birthdays, telling them the full story of their family, the darkness and the light, the betrayals and the redemptions, the lessons she had learned about love, forgiveness, and strength. She wanted them to know everything, not to burden them, but to prepare them, because the world was full of people like Jessica and Victoria, predators who looked for weakness, who exploited trust, who destroyed families for profit. Emma and Lucas would face those predators someday. Everyone did. And when they did, Margaret wanted them to remember their grandmother, the woman who had been knocked down and gotten back up, who had been dismissed and proved everyone wrong, who had been targeted by monsters and burned them to the ground. She wanted them to know that being underestimated could be a weapon, that patience was a strategy, that the people who loved you were worth fighting for no matter the cost. And she wanted them to know above all else that they were never alone, that their grandmother would be watching over them even from beyond the grave, cheering them on, believing in them, loving them unconditionally. Because that's what grandmothers do, that's what survivors do, that's what Richardsons do. Margaret finished the letter at midnight. She sealed it carefully and placed it in her safe next to the documents that detailed her real estate empire and the evidence that had put Jessica and Victoria away. Then she turned off the light and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new problems to solve, new battles to fight. But tonight she slept peacefully. A grandmother who had saved her family, a mother who had forgiven her son, a woman who had turned tragedy into triumph. Margaret Ellen Richardson closed her eyes and smiled. She had won, and she was finally blessedly at peace.